Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi mining community, welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Adam Oehlman, who's the CEO of Hancock Gold, an ASX-listed junior explorer who are exploring and developing a multi-million ounce potential at the Didievi Gold project in Côte. With qualifications in geology, mineral and energy economic, and also an MBA, Adam is an experienced mining professional with a strong background in both technical and commercial roles, holding key positions at Northern Star, Hancock Prospecting and Goldfields. He's now at the helm of Hancock Gold, and he's going to give us an overview of the company, recent activities that they've been undertaking and some of the challenges that they faced and overcome. He also understands the importance of mentoring, so he's going to provide some advice around advice to young professionals starting out in the industry and add some value where he thinks you could be looking to give maybe some of your employees and other colleagues that you may be working alongside in the industry. I also wanted to give out shout out to our sponsors, Hawcroft, who are leaders in property risk management within the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, asset criticality assessments and more. They work over 600 sites globally, and they support all areas of mining and mineral extraction. So if you're looking for any property and insurance risk management services, then please visit their website at www.hawcroft.com, and all the details are in the show notes. Adam, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the warm intro, Rob. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I know you're an avid listener to the podcast, so I wonder if you can give us tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, about your background, and I've got some questions afterwards around your career. So yeah, can you let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess I was exposed to the mining industry at a young age. My grandfather was a coal miner in Wallsend coal mines in New South Wales. My old man was probably more of a greenie, as he's still got a ponytail to this day, but he was a collector, so he loved collecting rocks, minerals, fossils, and he really introduced me to the hobby. And we're out there camping, looking for sapphires on the New England range, and I really developed a passion from there. And had a chance encounter with a geologist from WA, of all places, iron ore guy, who I think he embellished the job a bit, but he definitely had me sold.
And how's your career developed since then, with obviously the various companies that you work for? As I mentioned, you've got a geology background and you've worked in technical and commercial roles.
Yeah, so once I sort of finished high school and decided to make the dream come true, I sort of looked around. Going off my grades, I probably wasn't going to be an academic, and I thought, where's the best place to study? It's probably where all the mines are. So I made the move to WA from the East Coast and attended Curtin University, home of the School of West Australia School of Mines, one of the premier institutions in Australia, and haven't really looked back since. I was really fortunate to finish my studies in geology and get a graduate program with Northern Star Resources, who many of your listeners would know. And I've really just applied the same work ethic that I've had my whole life to this career, and buckled down and been fortunate enough to have really good mentors and leaders and get into high performing teams.
Yeah, good. I suppose moving on from that, what advice would you give to sort of young mining professionals that are starting out in the industry? And if you can refer back to when you recently graduated and entered the workforce, was there any challenges that you had to overcome that you could provide any advice for people that are starting out in the industry?
Yeah, I guess just going off my own sort of progression through the industry, I my ultimate goal, I was working as a garbage man before I started uni, so I wanted to just get in the industry and earn more than I did there. But I was always just applied that practical. I'm a bit of a blue collar guy that's now in sort of white collar roles, and I've sort of followed my nose once I got in and got into these teams where you've got a lot of future leaders. I think you'll know once you're in a high performing team, surrounded by people that are probably going to go and do good things, sort of similar to Simon Lawson and a few others that sort of mentored me throughout the journey. But I sort of took my own approach to it. So I knew after finishing my grad program, moving to a couple of sites in gold, that I really wanted to get back to the corporate side and sort of try to get closer to where the real big value creating decisions are made. You always want to empower your site team, but I think the corporate activities side of things is quite exciting. And for me, that looks like a business development or M&A role. And how I sort of achieved that was, looking at other people within the role that want to do the same thing I'm doing, reaching out. A big thing that I always tell guys coming through is just ask the question. The only person, don't let yourself tell yourself no, in a sense, let someone else do it for you. So, and you'll be surprised the amount of how generous people are with their time. With the ultimate goal, moving back to the corporate side, was to, one day I wanted to be running my own shop, and that's sort of I'm sort of cutting my teeth there now. So it's been quite the journey, but I think throughout that whole time, I've always had a goal. I've always been keeping as many doors open as I can while progressing in a very sort of structured path, and which I think is important. So many people are just sort of drifting along, letting life come to them. Develop a plan, talk to the people who are doing the thing you want to do, and then execute. And who knows where you end up, and just be open to new ideas.
As the CEO of African Gold, what would you say your value proposition is as a leader?
Yeah, so I've taken that generalist approach. So I think sort of realizing whether you're going to be that really deep technical expert, or you're going to have a hands-on broad depth of knowledge and sort of enough to know what you're talking about, and challenge assumptions from the technical teams, while also progressing the commercial and corporate side of things. So I think the guys that I work with at the moment sort of appreciate that hands-on approach. So I'm in there, I'm designing the drill programs, I'm assisting on sites, I really boots on the ground. It's not set and forget, even though the project's in Africa. It's your biggest expenditure as a junior is on the drill bit. So and all of that boils down to sort of data credibility. So I don't think my approach is definitely don't leave anything to chance, and sort of get involved wherever you can help and see value.
Yeah. Wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about African Gold, and what your strategy is with the company, so audience knows a little bit about the company. And I believe it is your first expat experience as well.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely exciting project. I was sort of drooling at the mouth when I had the initial intro and started doing my due diligence. So African Gold's based in Côte d'Ivoire. It's the premier West African country at the moment, and I'm back at my roots in gold. So I sort of had a bit of a detour in copper and non-ferrous minerals, lithium, rare earths. But it's great to be back with gold and in one of the most exciting jurisdictions. And one of the real advantages of Côte d'Ivoire is the infrastructure. So you've already got 10 operating gold mines. You've got Barrick, Endeavour Mining, Montage Gold, who are a big supporter of us. And like, not only do you get to leverage off, the logistics, the supply chain, there's strategical benefits from having existing incumbent operators even from a permitting, a mining. It's just it's really easy to do business. And then to the project itself, we're 35 kilometres out of the capital. I stay in a nice hotel. Oh, it's not flash, but for African standards, it's pretty bloody good. And I'm out 35-minute drive to site. We've got MSA labs, so we get quick turnaround times with our assays. They're doing photon assays. There's a maiden inferred resource on the project already, which is sort of 450,000 ounces at 2.9 grams per tonne, all open pittable at surface. Yowie Perseus's mine's only 60 kilometres away. Agbao and Bonacro, Allied Gold's mines are a similar distance, and really, really good infrastructure. Couldn't stress that enough. And being a explorer, I like to have a few different options, and we've got 11 sort of drill ready targets, some of which are standalone junior company projects. So it's just a completely blessed spot to be in, and it's exciting.
Obviously, you mentioned some of the drill results, and what's the next sort of stage and progress, and what should investors would need to know and keen to hear from you?
Yeah, so we announced earlier this year a 10,000 metre drill for equity program, diamond drill meters, and we're probably 70% of the way through that, and a lot of that's focused on Bluff-Agueto, which is where the maiden MRE is, and the goal there is we believe that 450,000 ounces is just the tip of the iceberg. We really want to see something over 1 million ounces at keeping those high grades, so it's a big value proposition for us to have a high grade open pittable resource. With gold prices where they're at the moment, toll treating, trucking to other operations, it's very economic. And aside from that, we've also tested two of the high quality regional targets, and both of those have come up with really, really exciting results. The Poku Trend, only 3 kilometres from Bluff-Agueto, 110 metres at 0.5 grams per tonne, 300 metres long strike, another sort of 50 at 0.5, and that's your typical West African bulk tonnes, lots of ounces. And then 11 kilometres north of Bluffo, we also got the Pranoi prospect, where we're hitting sort of 3 metres at 8, so more of your narrow vein, high grade stuff. So we've got a lot of variety, we've got a lot of targets, and just about every hole we put in is finding gold, which is, you just don't see that in WA these days.
I just wondered if you can just tell us about the company's ESG initiatives.
Yeah, well, I think you'd be crazy not to have a big focus on community and environment these days. So it's a massive focus of us, and since taking the reins, I've really taken a proactive approach with the community. So, we're supporting the local school. Our project impacts 4 villages who are they welcome us with open arms, but we also want to sort of build their trust and show them the great things that mining can bring. As coming from Australia, we're so fortunate to have benefited so greatly from our natural resources sector. I think passing that along in Côte d'Ivoire is a great thing to do. And we support the school, and it's sort of I think it's not just words. Last time I was in country a few weeks ago, I visited the school every time I go, and they just ran out of printer ink. So that night I went back to town and loaded up with printer ink for the rest of the year. So, and on flow from that, we support the locals women's group. They do Easter, massive Easter celebrations, Mother's Day. We are also, we've had a charity soccer match against the public servants, and we're really just building that base within the community. And we also we've trained sort of 20 locals from the villages, and we're not just doing the basic level. You're sampling. We've taken a group to train them up on data entry, computer skills, and that will not only make them more employable within the mining industry, but within local government. And Microsoft Office Suite's pretty powerful tools, particularly for those guys. So being able to really give back to their community and create a bit of wealth for them is something that we're striving towards.
With obviously gold reaching all-time high and obviously progressing pretty well in terms of the price, and I believe it will go a lot higher. One of you can just sort of comment on that, and obviously the capital market space being in gold, and what that does mean for for African Gold as the project progresses?
Yeah. I mean, it's an absolute great time to be in gold, with record highs, and also to be in a jurisdiction where it's just so supportive. Côte d'Ivoire is really one of the premier West African countries for mining, and they are what they're sort of setting up is I think other countries will follow their approach. And I think for us, particularly when the market's quite frothy, there is a lot of noise, and a lot of sort of people that don't quite might not have the story that they think they have. And for me, it's a big focus on sort of distilling our message into a non-hyped version. This is what we have. This is what the project could be, and just cutting through that hype, because sometimes it can work against you. People don't believe the story, despite how good it is. So I think just really focusing on pushing our technicals hard, distilling that message, and just focusing on the basics. And I'm not going to be like riding the market. I want to be discovering. I'm drilling holes. We're pushing. It's an aggressive approach, but at the end of the day, we also have the economic overlay where every drill program we do, every hole we put in, there's goals in mind. It's not just drilling to test science. It's drilling to find ounces and add shareholder value.
Yeah. As this is your obviously first expat role, what was your expectation of Côte d'Ivoire versus reality when you first got to site? And I suppose I'm asking that question if anyone's listening that hasn't worked as an expat before, and maybe even considering West Africa or even Africa as a region or a developing country. I just wonder what your initial perception of Côte d'Ivoire was versus the reality when you actually got there.
Yeah, I mean, there was prior to sort of taking the role, I had pretty limited knowledge, so it was a bit of an unknown. But fortunately, I touched on earlier, sort of having a strong network within the industry. Odds are it's quite a small industry. You'll know people who've worked in country on projects very similar to yours. So I sort of reached out to a few people I know and got the lay of the land. And for me, I'd rather go to Africa and it not work out and it be a bad time than it never go. So I'm always willing to take that challenge head on. And it's a bit of exciting, but you also can sort of get yourself in a bit of trouble. But Côte d'Ivoire is just an absolutely lovely place. I've just been so surprised how welcoming the people are, how good the infrastructure is, and it's quite a modern country, particularly in the capitals.
Just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about the executive team behind African Gold, which obviously you're part of.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. So Evan Cranston and Tolga Komova are two of the sort of lead board members who are just industry staples. They've had extreme amount of success in the junior space among a number of different commodities and companies. And sort of backing them up on the technical side is Peter Williams, who's also a bit of a West African name, and Matt O'Hara, who's sort of Tolga and Evan's right-hand man and in the mix with a lot of their companies. And something that I haven't touched on yet was our recent strategic investor that we brought on. So, it was quite nice to have that validation. Doing my due diligence, I know what the project is and what it could be, but having a $1 billion Canadian company come on board and really take control of Didievi and we're fully funded now through that transaction that we did. So Montage Gold's taken 20%, and as part of that, we also get a massive advantage of having Sylvia Botterill on our board, who's the EVP of exploration for Montage. She's accredited with 15 million ounces of discoveries in West Africa, so like a really real heavy hitter. I was on site with her last week, and just as I've done with the rest of my career, just being a sponge to the true the technical geniuses. And no, it's very exciting. And we also have the luxury of the CEO of Montage, Martino, coming on as a strategic advisor. So you mentioned being an expat and not being in country, that sort of regulatory and permitting side of things was a concern of mine. But we've got a really strong country manager in Mohammed Nair, who's across a number of ASX companies operating in the jurisdiction. And now we have Martino as well, who's really pushing forward the Montage Gold 300,000 ounce Côte project. So we're very well funded, well supported, and we have a absolute monster board that are just as excited as I am to drive African gold forward.
What are some of the biggest challenges, but also obviously opportunities ahead for both yourself and African Gold?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. I just think like staying sharply focused amid the junior sector noise. Like we are the real deal, and I always worry that our message isn't getting across because, when you have something really good, you want to share it with everyone else. And it can be difficult because, mining's a complex discipline. It's not as straightforward. There's very little apples with apples comparisons. And, things are quite technical and communicating it within the market. So that's one of my big jobs, is to make sure that all these great assays that we're receiving and drill results, which are really unparalleled compared to some of our peers, are getting that market penetration. So, and in terms of the opportunity, it's we're going to release that resource update this year. There's a real, particularly what we're seeing at Poku Trend and up in Pranoia, there's a lot of different resource zones to unlock, and that's really where the multi-million ounce potential comes from. So Bluffos, it's much more than the 450, but now we're just starting to see the tip of these, Poku, Pranoia, and there's about 6 other ones behind them. And my vision is, as I went to, is sort of an accelerated pathway from explorer through to producer or developer, or however far we get. I'm not going to be waiting around. I'm pushing it forward every day, and there's a lot of good things to come.
Good to hear. And lastly, what's the short to medium term outlook for African Gold?
Yeah, so we're just finishing up that 10,000 metre program that we announced. So we'll have assays coming through quite regularly up until probably June. And then we'll roll that straight into the resource update, which we're targeting for the end of July, sort of early August, while we plan the next round of drilling, which will kick off again likely in September. Could be sooner, but at the moment we're just focused on sort of finishing off what we're doing, releasing the resource while getting on to the next thing. And I haven't even touched on it. We've got a project called Konahiri, which is sort of 3 hours northwest of Yamoussoukro, and it is really exciting. So it's another really fertile belt, greenstone belt, earlier stage. So we've only done 8 soil samples, and we've identified an 18-kilometre long soil anomaly with some really high grade hits, and I'm really excited about getting the progressing that with some further soils, followed up by some form of drill program, and that will be coming through this year. And I always like to stay busy, so there might be a bit of consolidation near our existing tenements. There's a lot of different things that are up in the air at the moment, and I think that if there is a takeaway, it would be there's going to be constant, steady, positive news flow coming from us.
Yeah. Adam, thank you very much for your time. Appreciating you give us an update on African Gold, a little bit about history about the company, a little bit about yourself, and obviously your advice around people entering our industry, and explaining what culture is like. And as I asked the question around expectation to reality, hopefully a few people that listen to this that are not working in an expat role may consider working as an expat and just dipping their toe into another country, another culture, to experience what you've experienced. And I can see, and we've been speaking in the past, you're really excited about what's next and taking this project forward.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I couldn't agree more. And I always think people, you could probably live in your head a bit too much. So I think you probably need to think less and do more. And if it is something you're interested in, just have a crack. I mean, you can always probably go back to doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's the alternative.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, but no, I appreciate your time, and I love what you're doing with the podcast. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And if our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, they want to follow the African Gold story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, so we've got LinkedIn, Twitter. The company website's always up to date. You can find the info sort of email there. I'm pretty responsive if you want any questions, and similar to the good fortune that I had coming through, I like to help out as much as I can. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Great. Well, wish you all the best for the remainder of 2025. And perhaps you want to come on the podcast either later this year or next year and give us an update and give our audience an update on progress.
Yeah, more than happy to come on. Thanks, Rob.
Great. No worries. All the best, Adam. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. And please keep sharing these episodes. This is an episode where Adam explained a little bit about cultivar, obviously the gold industry, what someone coming into our mining industry, what they should expect. And if you're looking for an expat role, you might have a little bit of hesitations. Hopefully Adam has sort of quashed any fears that you may have, and maybe sometimes it is just putting your toe in the water or in the market to see what eventually could come for an exciting opportunity by just putting yourself out there a little bit more. So please keep sharing these episodes far and wide to educate our mining industry, wider industry, so everyone around the world can listen to great content as Adam has just done just now. So thank you for listening, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.